Hey, hi Viraj, am I audible? Yes, Rohit, I can hear you clearly. Great, I can see you as well. So let's get started. So I am Rohit, is in data warehouse team, and we are hiring for data analyst role for one of our retail clients. So the role is mainly around reporting, data validation, and working with business teams on analytics. Before we go into technical questions, could you briefly introduce yourself and tell me about your current role? Sure. So I have around 2.5 years of experience working as a data analyst, and in my current role, I mainly work with SQL, Excel, and Power BI. And my day-to-day work usually involves extracting data from the database, validating the numbers, and preparing reports or dashboards for business users. And now sometimes when stakeholders notice mismatches in reports or unexpected trends, so I investigate the queries and try to identify whether the issue might be coming from. Okay. Thanks for the introduction. So you mentioned working with dashboards and reporting. To understand your experience better, could you walk me through one project where you worked with data end to end? Yeah. So one project I worked on recently was a sales performance dashboard. So it tracked the metrics like revenue trends, order counts, and region performance. So manager could monitor how different regions were performing. So my role was mainly preparing the data set using SQL queries and validating the numbers before they were used in the dashboard. Yeah. All right. That helps. And just to clarify, were you mainly responsible for writing the SQL queries for the data set, or was the data engineering team preparing that for you? Okay, so in our project, the base data was coming from the data warehouse tables. So I was mostly responsible for writing the SQL queries to extract the data for reporting. But the data engineering team handled the ETL pipelines that loaded the data into the warehouse. Okay, understood. So when you receive a new data set for analysis, what are the first things you usually check before starting your work? Right. When I receive a new data set, so first thing I usually check are the data structure, column types, missing values, and duplicate records, because many times issues start from there only. So understanding the data quality early helps avoid problems later in the analysis. Right, that makes sense. Since you mentioned checking data quality, can you explain what you understand by the data analyst life cycle? So the data analyst life cycle usually starts with understanding the business requirement first. So once the requirement is clear, we collect or access the relevant data from the database, and after that comes data cleaning and preparation, because raw data often contains duplicates or missing values. Then we perform analysis using tools like SQL or Excel, and finally present insights through reports or dashboards for stakeholders. Yeah. Okay, now focusing specifically on data preparation, what steps do you normally follow during a data cleaning process? Okay, so during data cleaning, I usually check for duplicates, missing values, and inconsistent formats, and sometimes outliers. For example, date formats may be inconsistent, or there may be incorrect values that needs to be standardized before analysis. And when you encounter missing values or inconsistent data in a data set, how do you usually handle it? If there are missing values, I first try to understand why they are missing. Sometimes we can fill them using business logic or reference data, but in some cases it's better to exclude them depending on how important that column is for the analysis. All right. So before building a dashboard or report, what kind of checks do you perform to make sure the numbers are actually correct? Before building dashboards, I usually validate the numbers by comparing totals with the source tables and checking whether aggregations match expected values. Okay, good. So let's talk a bit about SQL. Now, since that seems to be a big part of your work, can you explain the difference between where and having clause? Okay. So where and having are both used for filtering, but the difference is mainly when the filtering happens. So where filter rows before aggregation, while having filters result after grouping. Right. Reporting queries often involve joins, so can you explain the difference between inner join and left join? Right. Inner join returns rows where there is a match in both tables, while left join return all rows from the left table even if there is no matching records in the right table. So suppose you are writing a query, okay, with group by, and you include another column in select that is not part of group by. What would happen in that situation? In most SQL databases, that query would throw an error, I guess, because every column in select must either be included in group by or used inside an aggregate function. Okay, so what aggregate functions do you commonly use in SQL when preparing reports? The aggregate functions I usually use are sum, count, average, min, and max, depending on what kind of metrics we need to calculate. Also, quick follow up on that, on last question. What is the difference between count asterisk and we can say count all and count particular column, count column? Count asterisk count all rows in a table, in the table, while count column count only rows where that specific column is not null. Okay, so have you worked with window functions like row number or rank? Yes, Rohit. So I have used window functions like row number. In one case, we used it to identify duplicate records and keep only the latest entry for each order ID. That why did you choose row number for duplicate instead of something like distinct? So in that situation, we used row number because we needed to keep only the most recent record for each order. So distinct removes exact duplicates, but in our case, records were slightly different. So we use row number with partitioning and then selected the latest record. So let me give you a practical scenario. Suppose your dashboard shows 10 million revenue, but the finance team says the correct number should be 8.5 million, let's say. So how would you start investigating that? So if there is a mismatch like that, so first thing I would do is verify the number directly from the source table using SQL. Sometimes dashboard include extra joins or filters, so I compare the dashboard query with the raw data query to identify where the difference is coming from. So have you faced a similar mismatch in your project before? Yes, Rohit. Actually, we faced a similar situation. In that case, the revenue number was higher than expected. So after checking the query, we realized that a join was creating duplicate rows because the status table had multiple records for the same order. So we fixed it by filtering the latest status record before performing the join. Okay, understood. So apart from SQL, analysts usually rely a lot on Excel as well. So how do you typically use Excel in your daily work? I usually use Excel for quick validations and comparisons. So for example, I use VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP to compare data sets and pivot tables to summarize data quickly. Yeah. And what is the difference between VLOOKUP and index match? VLOOKUP searches for a value in the first column and returns a value from another column, while index match is more flexible because it allows lookup in any column and usually performs better with large data sets, right? So good. If you receive a large data set in Excel, what would be your approach to analyze or summarize it quickly? If the data set is large, I usually start with pivot tables or filters to quickly summarize the data and identify patterns. All right. So now let's talk about a business scenario. Suppose the number of orders for any data set. Suppose the number of orders increased this month, but the total revenue decreased. So what could be the possible reason behind that? So one possible reason could be that the average order value decreased. Maybe customers are buying cheaper products or discount increased during that period. So and another possibility could be a change in product mix where more low priced items are being sold. So to confirm that, I would check the average order value trend and also analyze product category contribution during that period. Okay, that's interesting. So if a manager specifically asks why sales drop in a one particular region, so how would you approach that analysis? So if sales dropped in a particular region, so I would first compare that region with other regions and check historical trends. Then I would analyze product performance, pricing changes and customer activity in that region to understand what might be causing the drop. Since you mentioned Power BI earlier, tell me about the dashboards you have built. The dashboards I worked on were mainly sales performance dashboards, where users could filter data by region, product category, and time period. So, did you also write DAX measures for those dashboards? Yes, Rohit. I have written some basic DAX measures like total sales and month over month growth. Okay. So when designing dashboards, how do you decide which visualization do you to use for a particular data set? When choosing visualizations, I usually think about the type of insights we want to show. For example, line charts work well for trends and bar charts are good for comparisons. Yeah. So let's do a quick SQL thinking question as well. So suppose you have a table with employee salaries. So how would you find the second highest salary? To find the second highest salary, I would probably use a query with order by salary descending DESC or and limit one offset one. Another way could be using a subquery with max salary where salary is less than highest salary. Okay, one last technical question. So before we wrap up, if let's suppose if a SQL query is running very slowly, what steps would you take to troubleshoot it? If a SQL query is running slow, the first thing I check is whether the query is scanning too much data Then I will review joins, filters, and indexes here. Good. And finally, how do you usually explain your analysis or insights to non-technical stakeholders who may not be very familiar with data? When explaining insights to non-technical stakeholders, I definitely try to focus on the business meaning first, business meaning of the numbers instead of technical details. Yeah. All right. So that covers most of my questions, Viraj. So do you have any questions for me? Okay, Rohit. So I actually had one question. If possibly, could you share any feedback about my interview so I know where I can improve? Yeah. Uh, okay. So overall, your fundamentals look good, and your answers were also logical and practical. So you might want to strengthen some advanced SQL areas, okay, like window functions, rank, dance rank, okay. But your approach to problem solving seems good. So I think you are good. So our team will review your profile, and the recruitment team will get back to you regarding the next steps. So thanks for your
Yeah,
time today.
thank you,
Have a good
Rohit.
day.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate
You
your
bye.
feedback and your